Hi, I'm Tom Telford here with the Lift and Make Lighter podcast. We're actually in Silicon Slopes Studios, so thank you, Silicon Slopes. And I'm here with Heather Nemelka, who is the founder of LÉVO. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
A long time in the making. Let's dive into this. Why don't you give a few minutes of background of what led you to this point, where you're at, and this incredible passion that you have to lift and make lighter other women who are trying to scaffold a re-entrance into working or careers or professions. So take us there.
So about 10 years ago, I got divorced and I had to re-enter the workforce after being out of it for 18 years. And I didn't think I had any skills. I didn't think I had any qualifications that would allow me to have a really good paying job. And I figured that I was going to have to be administrative assistant, work in the school as a substitute teacher, something just to be able to make ends meet. And over time, I was able to get a job, figure things out, go back to school, get my MBA. And through the whole process of these past 10 years, I was helping other mothers navigate this challenge of returning to the workforce after a career gap. And some were divorced, some of them just had financial needs, and others were just trying to find fulfillment. And, after being a stay-at-home mom for a period of time. And I recognized that all these women that I was helping on the side, people would reach out to me on LinkedIn, people would reach out to me in my neighborhood at church asking if I could help their sister, friend, neighbor. I was helping all these women and I realized, oh my goodness, I need to scale my efforts in a way that can be really impactful. And at that moment, I recognized that I needed to do something to scale me, and what would that look like? And it came about in the form of creating a nonprofit foundation, the LÉVO Foundation, but then also an LLC to allow me to be able to fund the nonprofit. So it wasn't expected at all, but I recognized, even though I do marketing full time, I recognized that I had something to offer, and that's pretty much how it came about.
Yeah. As you've posted online, and I don't know what was the connection between the two. I don't know if it's Nate Randall, who's a friend of mine, or some others. It's funny, the algorithm. Dave, by the way, I think Kevin may be knocking on the door. I don't know if he's trying to get in, but we can keep rolling. We can splice this. But so someone connected me to you. And it was a blessing, frankly, that the algorithm somehow connected us, because that post that day caught something in me that's really important to me. So I have to give you some context, if you don't mind.
I want to know.
So in 2018, I finished selling a business to a large publicly traded company. I'd spent 25 years in institutional finance. And that day was a bit of an awakening for me. It was a moment in time of, to be honest, a pretty interesting kind of ego trip of, I did it. I finally did something that I was proud of. And, with my childhood of struggling in school and ADHD and dyslexia, all this stuff, right? I had a lot of chips on my shoulders growing up. So selling a business was this moment of proof to all of these naysayers that I could do something big. The irony that day, after a little bit of an ego trip, was that I don't know what happened or what occurred, but it struck me a question. How did I get here? And that question made me spend probably 4 hours that day in a home office really thinking through, how did I actually get here? And actually, more specifically, who got me here? So I literally wrote that day a list of all of the who's, all of the people. And as I looked at the list and made sure everybody was there who had such impact, they all were. But I looked at the list closer and I started to check mark something that was really interesting to me. And that was the key moments and who were there in the key moments when I made shifts in my life to really get where I am. All the check marks, for the most part, were women.
Wow. That's amazing.
Interesting, right?
Oh, I love it.
Mother, wife, spouse, sisters, business partners, school teachers, people who along the way really made all the difference. And I had some amazing men in my life, don't get me wrong. But the key moments of as an example, I could get emotional. The day that I remember young, my mom saying, "You are handsome." And I believed her. And to this day, my confidence, right, in just appearance is based in one comment from my mom, you know? So that day I made a promise as I made this list, looked through it, that I would more authentically show up for the actual value of women in my life. And what's interesting about that moment is that since then, what I have built and created has been tied to this one key component of, are we actually showing value to women for their impact in our lives?
Oh, I love it.
And there are a couple things that I won't share that are very sacred and personal to me. But what I will say is that LÉVO, which is sponsoring this podcast, is run by 4 other women intentionally. So at the time that I sold the business, my wife became or chased her dream to become a marriage and family therapist, which brought us into mental health. And her being in mental health has led to us starting and owning this company, LÉVO. And today it's mostly run by women. I mean, other than me and other than a marketing director, it's mostly run executive team-wise by women. Our logo, when we designed it, was intentionally designed for the feminine. And in Latin, LÉVO means to lift and make lighter. Excuse me. If I were to describe the women on the list that day, that would be their descriptor. They lifted me and made lighter my burden of ADHD and dyslexia and all of these things that I struggled with along the way in growing up. So all that to say, when I saw that post that day of your commitment to lift and make lighter other women, I was like, I got to meet this lady. And whatever she's doing, I'm writing checks, you know? So, and hence, that conference. And you probably were going, who's the stalker? Who's like willing to, send money? But
I'm so grateful though. Oh
no, you need to know that I'm behind it. I'm about it for a lot of reasons, but because of your commitment to do that. So dive further in. What are you trying to accomplish with Elevair?
You're going to make me emotional. Gosh. So 10 years when I got divorced, I didn't have anybody to lift me. I didn't have any friends that were divorced at the time. I knew some people that were divorced, but they weren't close. And it was a lonely road because I hadn't anticipated it. I don't think you anticipate you're going to get divorced. But I recognized that being alone in this process, or feeling alone, was really hard. And I remember thinking to myself, why did this happen? Because, I thought I was doing all the right things. And I do own my role in the dissolution of the marriage. But I just was really surprised, why would this happen to me? And as I've thought more about the whole process and the journey that I've been through, I realized that maybe I had to go through this really hard thing so that I could help other women on their journey. And so if I am in this position, I just need to make the most of it. And so if I can lift and make other women's lives lighter because of what I've gone through, then it won't have been a waste at all. Like, it will have served a purpose. And I think that's the beautiful thing about life's challenges, is that if you can look at the silver lining in them, or why was it that you had to go through this, and figure out the impact that you can make in somebody else's life. Certainly, you going through your ADHD struggles and whatnot, you're able to lift other people because you know what it's like. And I know intimately the fears, the hardships, the challenges from not only a divorce perspective, but just being a single mom trying to raise your children alone. Certainly my former husband was involved, but most of the burden or hard things came, on my shoulders, I really wanted to be able to help in a way that would make a difference in these women's lives that I didn't have in my own. And so I recognize that it's almost like a sacred calling in a way of that I was chosen, I guess, to do this. It's what I have to do to help lift.
Yeah. It's funny you say sacred calling, because in the mental health industry, which I am in, it's ironic how many people this morning, today alone, I interviewed 2 people. I had a lunch meeting. This is the second podcast. Almost in every instance, the people I've spoken with talk about them being called to the mental health industry. And when you really dive into what they describe as a calling, they would say, well, I suffered, therefore I'm prepared and most, expertly positioned to provide the compassion that other people need in their suffering.
Yeah. That's how I see it. I have a compassion that I never would have had if I hadn't gone through this. I never would have been able to relate to these women who feel incapable, who feel like they don't have any value, who feel like they are desperate. They're just trying to survive. And if I hadn't gone through this, I wouldn't be able to understand their perspective. And I don't understand everybody's perspective, but I know a lot of the intimate challenges that these women deal with. And now that I've been helping, women return to the workforce, I've also been able to see this side of the lack of confidence, which has come about from speaking to so many women, is this challenge that they have with not having any confidence to even get back into the workforce, to take any steps, because they think, well, they're oftentimes, mothers especially, are comparing themselves to other people, right? And so we think, oh, well, we can't do this because only so-and-so can, because they're so much more capable. But I've recognized that those challenges are ones that I had myself, and I somehow got through it and overcame it. And if I can help other women see their value and their worth, that's what I'm here for.
Describe confidence.
Oh man,
what is your definition now?
I've never had to define it.
From your perspective, knowing who you're lifting, what did they believe that is missing, and what have you seen as you kind of view that and hear them describe, maybe in desperation, that I don't have what it takes?
Yeah. I don't think I can give like an exact definition, but this concept of confidence requiring evidence. And I think when we as women put so much into our children, our spouse, the household, we give up, I think, some of our confidence to instill it in those around us. So I think of my children. I was trying to help them build confidence for years, and you can do it. You're so capable. And I think in that process, I lost a little bit of who I am and that confidence that I had in just who Heather is outside of being a mother. And so I think confidence is gaining that belief that you are exactly who you were always meant to be, that we all have a purpose in this life. And I think over time, hard things happen to us. People tell us that we can't do something, or they put us down, and we internalize that, and then we forget who we are, who we are supposed to become. And so I think confidence is, like I said, this, you need to have this evidence. And if you can't see it, if you aren't surrounded by people who are telling you how wonderful you are, certainly your kids when you're a mom tell you, the lunch you made me was the wrong, you didn't cut the crust off my bread, you were late to pick me up from school. Like, there's always this negativity around you.
Yeah. The mirror of your children's feedback isn't helpful at all.
No,
right? Dad's not funny. I'm late.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff. So, yeah.
It makes it challenging to remember that you are so much more. And so I think that lack of confidence is easy for it to go away. And so if you don't have the evidence, it just makes it challenging. Let's
talk about a situation or a scenario, because I too want, from my perspective as, a multi-business owner who is interviewing people all the time, I want to lend my voice if I can, even if I hope it's helpful, just for someone who interviews women often, mental health professionals, staff, whoever they may be. Here's the example for you. Maybe we can case study this together. So I interviewed a woman recently who has gone through a divorce. She has 5 children, 2 of which are adopted, ages 2 and 3. Incredible support system that
Oh,
she
that's
has.
great.
She has fantastic parents. She has amazing siblings who are helping. But in our discussion, I could tell this confidence thing was a thing. And she's highly educated. I mean, she is a doctor of nurse practitioner, psych mental health nurse like she's educated. She's been at it a long time, also going through all of this stuff, right? Some pretty heavy stuff. So how would you coach her in an interview? It was interesting for me to be the interviewer, you know. How would you coach her?
I mean, prior to the interview, like what, like how do you get
So
through
I'm
that
going
interview?
in,
Yeah.
CEO of this company.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
the owner. He's going to
Yeah.
interview me. She had stalked me online. She had listened to lots of podcast stuff. So she was prepared.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. I was like, wow, she's well-read, well-researched. So is that a key thing?
Oh, 100%. I think, when you go into an interview, understanding what the company's about, their values, their mission, certainly the person you're interviewing with, if you can look them up and find out what are they about, what do they really value, and making sure that what you're going to share is aligned. Because oftentimes in an interview, the person who's interviewing, whether it's the hiring manager or recruiter, they're looking for some commonality, something that they can say, oh yes, we have some similar values, direction, goals, etc. And I think as a woman reentering the workforce, it's really important to take that time to research what the company values, so that when you're speaking to the interviewer, you can talk about those values and how your life aligns with that. I think also to preparing for the interview in my world means doing mock interviews with other people and practicing, and hey, talking to your brother and saying, hey, practice with me and pretend that you're the CEO of this company and ask me the hard questions. And I think also to just realizing that the person that's interviewing you is trying to see if you're a fit, like just understanding that they want to know you, who you are. Yes, you have the resume, and as long as you have those qualifications and you meet those basic qualifications that are needed for the role, they also want to just know, will you be able to work well with other people? Are you going to be able to communicate well? And those are skills, those soft skills are so much more valuable in the long run than those hard skills. So yes, she had the qualifications, which was great, but the other thing I think that the interviewer is looking for, like you, is are you going to be able to get along well with everybody? Are you going to be able to lift other people in this organization and communicate? So
it's interesting to hear you describe that. I love those points of just coaching them up in those certain things. What are the other things that moms are worried about that they shouldn't be going into an interview or entering the workforce, that they may be concerned over it, but in reality, it's not weighted as much. Right. The scale is not weighted towards the thing that they may think it may be.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts around that. So I'm going to get to that. But something I wanted to mention was when I was going back to the workforce, I had a degree in communications with an emphasis in advertising. But because I had been out of the workforce for so long and everything had become digital, I didn't have technical skills, not coding, but just being able to use Outlook, Google Suite, things like that. And I think I thought to myself, no one will want to even look at me because I haven't been working. But I think where I was mostly nervous about was not being able to do technical things in the workforce. And what I wish I could have coached myself with is that if you are, willing to learn, and certainly if you've gotten a degree, that shows something. And so if you're willing to put forward the effort to figure out these technical applications, you'll figure it out. You might stumble a little bit, but that was the one thing I wish I could have told myself is the technical skills. You think you can't do it, and you're like, you won't be able to function. Yes, at first it's hard, but then you figure it out. And that's one of the basic things I think keeps a lot of women from getting into certain roles, because they think, oh, I can't do computer, whatever it is. So that's one thing.
I don't speak Excel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I recognized was just getting your foot in the door is so key, because when I started my role at KT Tape, I was a marketing coordinator, and I was a little embarrassed and I felt bad because I was like, that's what college students get as their job right out of college. And here I was in my 40s getting a job as a marketing coordinator. It was kind of hard on my ego, right? And but I knew if I proved myself, I worked really hard for that first year, that I could, potentially ask for a raise and be promoted to manager. And so I kept track of all the things I'd done. So I had data, I had proof. So I went into the CEO and I just said, these are the things I've been doing, and I feel like I am meeting the expectations of a manager. I'd like you to consider that. And then I ended up getting that promotion. And so I think also having this concept of whatever you get into may not be exactly what you were hoping for, but then once you prove yourself in that role, then they'll see, oh, Heather's capable of more, and they'll give you more responsibility.
I love you just said that. Get in and kill it, and then advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And that advocacy, I think, is a challenging thing for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
If you've not been at it a while and you haven't really scaffolded, to use your word, confidence, it may be hard for you to confidently go in and advocate for yourself. But this is where I want to lend my voice. As a business owner, as a CEO of a company, I cannot ignore someone who is proactively awesome at what they do.
Mm.
So when I think about value in an organization, it really boils down to one thing: time. Mm. Are you a time waster or are you a time saver? Because time to an organization is money. It's capital. It's ROI. A lot of the terms that a lot of, people don't necessarily want to be talked about as a human, but it's just real. Those are key factors in an organization. So if you are a woman who can get in and be a problem solver and save time, you will not be ignored.
Oh, I love that.
You will not be ignored, right? The other thing is that on top of problem solving, if you just shine, if you do it well and shine, if you show up and you deliver and you do it, to your point, just having confidence, again, you cannot be ignored when it comes to a review.
So true.
You cannot.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time, make it really hard for me to not give you a raise or throw stupid money at you.
I love that.
Right. And it's just the truth. If you just show up and do it well and work really hard, then an organization, by the way, if they ignore you truly doing well, then I think right? That is not where you should be.
Not for you. Yeah.
Yeah, because someone above you who you may be advocating yourself with, if they don't see it, if they have a blind spot to it, it's time to go.
Yeah. Well, and also too, what coach women to do is that, and this applies to anybody. In your role, keep track of all of the additional responsibilities that you take on during the year. Make sure you're tracking all the kudos that other people are giving you, all of the praise, because again, if this confidence requires evidence to be able to get the confidence to self-advocate for you, you're going to have this journal or document of all the things that you've accomplished and done that tells you, yes, you deserve that promotion. And then that way you actually go into those conversations with a lot of confidence to say, I've done this. This wasn't in my original job description. I've taken on this. I've been proactive here and there. And then to your point, you can't ignore that.
Yeah. And if they do, and that's why I'm advocating this. And if they do ignore you, then
Yeah.
So I get asked all the time, when do you know if you should leave? And the answer is, if you're not appreciated. And you'll know it's appreciated because if they're great leaders, they will acknowledge it along the way because they don't want it to stop.
Yes.
They want the behavior to continue because it's awesome. Like it's saving time and it's accomplishing things. And if they don't acknowledge and then reward, it's time.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest feeling in the world, to leave an organization who fails to acknowledge because your worth.
Right.
The evidence is there, right? You have confidence because the evidence is there. The other thing I want to just say, if it's okay, to an audience who may or may not be listening to this, women who are thinking about it, is that being a good human who can problem solve and to try to scaffold out problem solving in whatever organization and role that you're in, it's undeniable. Mm. It shines so much, for someone who doesn't always have to be given a to-do list, who recognizes, looks around them, notices, this is the mom, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just, hey, I have to address all of the kids or where they need to be. Like, I don't know that there's a better skill that is taken away from being a mother or a parent than multitasking.
Oh, 100%.
Just recognizing what's going on and knowing how to address it. How you put that on a resume, I don't know. It could be different depending on the organization, but go in and talk about your ability to see and problem solve.
I love that. Yeah.
It's just undeniable, right? I mean, I can hire really, really talented intellectually people. And if they struggle to see and recognize if they are not self-aware, if they are not organizationally aware, they will not survive.
Yeah.
Brain surgeons, right? Who cannot look around and notice really and read the room and what's going on, they won't be employable. At least not with any sort of growth trajectory, because they're a distraction, So I just say that so that those who may listen and hear that the skills that you have scaffolded as a mother, they're legit. You may not know that or feel that because it's children, but how silly. Of all the herding cats that could go on, right? It's children. And so to do it in a business setting or a professional setting, that counts.
Yeah.
It's valuable. It's important.
Well, and I think that's what I'm always trying to tell these mothers, that all of the skills you have acquired during this time of being a full-time mom or part-time mom are completely transferred to the workforce. So you talk about multitasking, right? Time management,
Yep.
Event planning. You think of the, children's birthday parties and family reunions, budgeting, right? So you, as a family, you have to budget what you're going to spend on trips. And I mean,
family picture day? Are you kidding me? What could be more stressful than that day?
Yeah. So wouldn't you want to hire somebody that has been through all those challenging, situations and has to come out on top, right? And then they can apply that to your organization. That's kind of what I want to help, business owners and companies realize, that like, let's change the narrative. Instead of looking at this gap of time, like, look at all those hard skills and the soft skills that a mother has acquired and see how they apply to your organization. But certainly that there's a need for the mothers to figure out how to communicate that too, right? So they may not recognize. I'm glad that we're talking about it, because I think there's so many skills they don't even see that they've acquired.
Yeah, I mean, how to speak it or write in the language of the institution you're applying with, that's not necessarily easy, because you don't know who's interviewing or who's sifting that stuff. I'm just saying you are not behind as much as you may think you are, right? It's just not true. I mean, a mother's lens and skills and abilities, they translate into the professional world. Why? Because they're the consumers for most companies. And so there's just a lot there, right? In terms of just knowing how to apply it.
100%.
But you're not behind.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you want to share or I don't know, double click on, while we have the time?
Yeah, no, I think the other thing I would just say is that mothers need to start thinking now about what that day looks like when they do re-enter the workforce. So I think women who are stay-at-home moms and they've got young kids, I think if they are taking action to make themselves more relevant, so whether it's volunteering for PTA or with the United Way, something in the community, and taking like a record of all of that, so that when the time does come when they return to the workforce, they can also show, okay, not only have I done these things within the home, also within the community. So I think just making sure that they continue their relevancy while they're being a mother, and certainly those mother skills are going to be important, but anything that they can do outside of that, whether they're taking an online course, any hobbies that they've developed that then, like maybe they do graphic design on the side for fun, like making sure that they keep those skills up so that when they return, it's just an easier transition too.
It's amazing. I love that idea of just keeping it up. When someone attends an Elevera conference, are there guest speakers to talk about the resources to keep current? I mean, I listen to so much podcast and YouTube speaking and TED Talk stuff. In my head, I'm going, I could be at any carpool practice. I mean, being in the car alone has so much opportunity to keep learning and current. Is that part of the conference?
I mean, I'm excited because we have our Elevera Summit all recorded. So anybody can go to elevera.com and learn about the summit there and watch the recordings. So the resume, the experts that talked about resumes, interviewing, everything that came about in the summit. But now we're going to be starting a confidence series in March, where we're going to be able to have a workshop every single week to talk about some of the skills to build confidence, and then a monthly workshop that we'll record. So online, we'll have these trainings, but then also once we launch the LÉVO Academy, which will be an 8-week course. It doesn't take 8 weeks, but we say 8 weeks, so it's easy, realistic for a mother to do over time. Then they can do all those trainings and learn how to create their resume, their LinkedIn profile, how to benefit from experts that can help coach them at their leisure. So to your point, they could listen to it while they're driving carpool and in their spare time.
I just got to throw something out there to think through as part of that conference, or the process that they're going through, is the connection between mentors. That day in my office, when I had this epiphany moment of women in my life and the impact, it also was largely driven by, I can't believe how many incredible mentors I had along the way. Zero cost professionals who just somehow, took a liking to me. So I don't know if mentors are involved in what you're doing, but the ability to connect women and mothers to mentors who just want to give back.
Yeah.
They really do. For free.
We did have quite a few women reach out and just say, hey, I'm already in the workforce. I want to be able to help more women because I've been there. And so we will be setting up these pods. This is what we're calling them right now, but they're not really a pod, but in the sense that there's a 7 to 10 group of women that they can have a mentor talk to them, and then they meet weekly and talk about, or bi-weekly, where they can talk about issues that they're dealing with returning to the workforce, and then this mentor can help them coach them through those challenges.
That's awesome.
Coming up.
Good. So excited. Thank you for all you do to lift and make lighter.
Thank you.
It's seriously inspiring.
You too. What you're doing is inspiring, and some of the best allies are the men in our lives. So really appreciate you.
It's nice of you to say. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Okay, sounds good.